So it feels like there that this one has gone in quicker. So I'm going to actually just take a little pair of pliers and lightly hold that, trying not to mar the threads, and just screw on the one that's coming loose. That's not tightening as much as I would like. There we go. Okay. So what you're shooting for on the length of this little rod, like the other ones, this one we're shooting for 31 millimeters. So you can lay it against your ruler or your calipers or whatever you might have and dial it down till it's about 31 millimeters long. I need just a little more. Okay, and that's going to leave just a slight gap between the two rod ends, a little less than a millimeter space in there. Okay, and again, we can adjust these later. It's not super critical on this one. The servo has plenty of throw, and so you just want to get it approximately there. So what we can do next is we can take this rod end, and snap it over the ball, and that creates your drive link. Okay, all right, next we need to attach this thumb pivot to the palm plate. We're going to do that with these 440 screws. Find your wrench that fits your 440 screws. And so the screws come from the outside through the black part, through the wood part, and then into the lock nut. So I like to start, just get them in place first on both sides. There's a few threads in the lock nut that are free spinning, so you can get things started before you have to hold the lock nut in place. So we do one. Now, the second one that comes from the bottom side, if you look down through the triangle, you'll see there's a hole in that plate. This screw passes through that hole and into the thumb pivot, and the head actually stays in there. So what you got to kind of do is just pass your wrench up through there, get it lined up, and push it through like that. Yeah. Then we'll take our other nylock and tighten it down on there a little bit. Okay, so once you got them semi-tight, now you got to come back and take your pliers, and you got to hold your nut and tighten in that screw. A little bit slippy. If you have a little open-end wrench that fits that, it can be kind of useful. It's easier to hold than trying to do it with pliers, but either way, you can get it done. So I just keep tightening it down, and basically you want to go, you can go till it's tight, barely, and then you want to back it off a little. And I usually set one at a time. Back it off maybe a quarter of a turn, an eighth of a turn. You want this to just be able to pivot. This should pivot smoothly. There should be no tension there, but you don't want it to be wobbly. So you do the same for the other side. Take it down until it just tightens up, and then maybe back it off a eighth to a quarter of a turn. Again, move that. You want it to move smoothly but not wobble. That actually feels pretty good. And basically what's happening here is our servo in there is driving this to adjust the thumb pivot. Okay. Alright, so if you are building a hand kit, this is as far as this piece goes. You'll be stopping here. You'll have a few leftover screws. I don't know what those 440s are for. I will have to look at that later. You'll have a couple of the, I'm sorry, those are not 440s. Those are 256 nuts for these 256 screws. There we go. Got that a little confused. You'll have these leftover set of screws which hold the servo in, and you'll have the leftover ball and nut that attaches to the servo arm that this link will go to. Again, this is only if you're building a full arm. So, just so I can show you, if you look here, I have another plate that I've kind of assembled. This one's not glued, but assembled. And that one is assembled as a left hand, the thumb being on the inside here, pointing to the right, where this one is assembled as a right hand. So you can see the difference there. It's just a matter of putting it together. Basically, which side of these four plates you bolt everything from. If you bolt it from this side, it's a left hand. If you bolt everything from this side, it becomes a right hand. So, again, assembly. Also on this one, you'll notice, if you're building the hand kit, this is what your part will look like. It'll just be the solid plate, no extra holes, versus this one for the arm. Now, I'm going to go ahead and, if you're just doing this, you can stop now, and the next video will be attaching all the servos and fingers to this. If you're building an arm, stay with me here, and I'll show you how to put in these last 4 or 5 pieces here to make the wrist pivot. First thing you want to do is find your 2 pieces. These are the actual pivot pieces. Take your larger binding post here, and you want to stick it through the hole, and you want to work it in there. These holes can be tight sometimes, and if the hole is tight when you're trying to assemble it, it'll just mess everything up. So I like to pre-fit these things in the hole. Make sure that the hole is correctly sized so this binding post goes through easily, so you don't end up with some trouble. Okay. So, to start, these 2 little tabs, these are the tabs that the link rod's hooked to for running the wrist. Again, now these 2 tabs, out of all these parts, you can actually orient these with a clean side versus the non-clean side. So we'll start by looking at these 2 tabs, and we'll find the sides that have the cleaner holes. Again, the cleaner holes go to the outside, so this tab has a clean hole on this side. And what they do is they key into this notch in the bottom part of the hand. So if you see that, they just kind of press in there and sit like that. So I'll take the other one and put it in here like this. Now, next is the thin part. I'll look at it, find the cleaner side. The cleaner side you want to face out. And what happens is this part actually slides in to these 2 center notches. If they can stay together for a second. And it will hold those 2 tabs down. You'll see that as you slide that in, that this piece keys into those 2 pieces and holds them in place. That kind of just helps key everything together. And then you'll have this last piece, again, find the clean side. That side goes out. And that piece kind of keys into this upper set of notches here. And everything just kind of presses in and lines up nicely. Now, this is where the binding post comes in. I like to put this binding post through these 2 plates so that I know they maintain their alignment with that hole. So I just kind of press this guy in here. There we go. Now this piece is basically an alignment jig. What this is going to do, this is going to hold your 2 wrist plates parallel to each other while you glue them, because you want to make sure you have a specific spacing in here for the wrist joint. So if you look at this little plate, one side's got a larger knot, one side's got a smaller notch, and those just correspond to the sides of the wrist plates that they go with. And basically you just drop that puppy in there, line it up on the top, and press it on. Now what you can do is once you get it on there, man, fumble fingers today. You can kind of just hold the whole thing from the top here on top of that bracket. And that will kind of just secure everything in. We know that the spacing's correct. We know that the hole is aligned because the pin's there. The spacing's correct because of the jig. So we're ready to glue that up. And again, we just do the same thing we've done with all the others. We just kind of run some glue down the joints. Okay, so you just want to lay it in here. Make sure you get all these points. Oops. Make sure your bracket stays where it's supposed to be. Didn't quite have that piece snipped in there all the way, but it's okay. Everything still fits. Gonna work on the back here. Again, just working around each of those points that you assembled. Get in the back side. Alright, that thing's about done. Also, be careful, do not glue your binding post in on accident. That'll be a real bear to get out. So you just want to go through and lay the glue in there. This guy obviously has finished its job. It just seems to keep falling out, which tells me that everything is locked into place. So you can remove that piece. You might go ahead and leave the binding post in there for a little bit while the whole thing dries, just to make sure. And that wraps up the assembly of the Palm. I will be detailing a video next on attaching all the servos and fingers to this piece, and then moving on down the arm. Thank you for joining us, and until the next time.